I didn't know this. Let me check. Okay.
Good afternoon and welcome to our webinar series, Truth Under the Microscope. So welcome. And as we begin, kindly raise your thumb in the chat. We want to be clear that you are ready and set for the webinar. Today, Thursday, the 13th of August, 2026, we are continuing webinar 2 in the series, Truth Under the Microscope. And our topic for today is communicating emerging technologies with confidence. Welcome to the webinar. And I haven't seen any messages in the chat yet. I would like you to post in the chat a thumbs up, or a star to notify us that you're ready to begin the webinar. I'd like to welcome each and every one of you from wherever you're joining us from across the globe. Welcome to the webinar series organized by the Africa Genetic Biocontrol Consortium in conjunction with the Elizabeth R. Griffin Foundation at the Johns Hopkins University. Thank you. I can see very many hands and thumbs ready to learn. Thank you very much. I also want to send a very warm welcome to our participants, the Francophone team, and we are happy to note that we have interpretation, French-English or English-French interpretation today. I'd like to also welcome our interpreter. He's already on board, Francis. Welcome very much. In order to join the interpretation, in order to benefit from the French interpretation, there are instructions on your screen. Go to near the bottom right of your screen, go to More. You can see 3 dots. Click on the dot, and then you will find Interpretation, then select French. Right? The French team, select French, and we'll be able to proceed. So thank you very much for coming to this webinar series, Truth Under the Microscope. And today's challenge is communicating emerging technologies with confidence. And we are happy to welcome on board our presenters and moderators in a moment. But first, a little introduction to the African Genetic Biocontrol Consortium. This webinar is being produced in conjunction with the Biotrust Institute, the African Genetic Biocontrol Consortium, and the Elizabeth R. Griffith Foundations at the Johns Hopkins University. The African Genetic Biocontrol Consortium is a leading African platform which translates genetic biocontrol science into safe, ethical, and impactful solutions for agriculture and public health. The platform is an opportunity for African experts and institutions to interact, strengthen technical capacity, exchange knowledge like we are doing in this webinar series, and deliberate on challenges and opportunities that are associated with genetic biocontrol technologies. Here at the AGBC, we seek to build informed local leadership and support development, decision-making, and the responsible use of genetic biocontrol technologies, these to benefit public health, animal health, wildlife, conservation, and environment protection in Africa. Today's webinar, we are also joined by the chair and founder of the African Genetic Biocontrol Consortium, Dr. Willie Tonu. And he's in the call. We are also joined by the secretariat team at the African Genetic Biocontrol Consortium based in Nairobi. Distinguished speakers and panelists, partners, collaborators, journalists joining and editors joining, researchers, regulators, and policymakers. One thing that we do at the African Genetic Biocontrol Consortium is we organize a global consortium or a global congress, which will be coming up in March next year. We will be welcoming you to mingle or to look at our website so that you see how to participate through submitting an abstract. We also have a GenBio weekly newsletter, which you can subscribe to. This conversation is important because it emphasizes the emerging life science technologies, which are often discussed in emotionally charged and highly polarized contexts. So today, we've gathered the experts to let us know about how we can communicate emerging technologies with confidence. How can we communicate this trust by design? How can we communicate emerging technologies with confidence so that even as the journalists go about their reporting, they are reporting facts? Genetic biocontrol technologies have the potential to contribute to addressing challenges such as vector-borne diseases, invasive species, and agricultural pests. This is a matter of public interest, and therefore we want to welcome you on board to this for the next 2 hours or so to engage with our speakers and with our panelists. And now it gives me pleasure to welcome on board our moderators for the day. That is Miriama Kujom Agiemang, who is a seasoned environmental and climate change science communication specialist with over 20 years of experience in journalism and media training. She is an award-winning journalist, and she is known for simplifying complex climate, biotechnology, and natural resources issues for diverse audiences. She is currently the leader of the media platform on environment and climate change, that is NPEC, based in Accra, and she coordinates flagship activities such as the Biennial Forum for Natural Resources, Environment, Climate Change, and Science, that is the NECS. In the past, she's also done work with the UNDP, UNICEF, NEPAD, as well as the IUCN in Ghana, ProForest, Care Ghana, and the African Genetic Biocontrol Consortium, as well as the National Biosafety Authority and Lands Commission, all based at promoting media understanding and public discourse on environmental resilience, climate change, science nexus, and sustainability. I'd also want to introduce our co-moderator, Momar Dieng from Senegal. Il est journaliste d'investigation sénégalaise vivant à Dakar. He is also a graduate. He is also a graduate from the Journalism and Communication Institute, École Supérieure de Journalisme de Paris. So I'd like to now welcome on board Momar Dieng and Miriama Agiemang. You can raise a thumbs up to welcome them on board as they take over the program. Miriama and Momar Dieng, they'll be coming on board to welcome the keynote speaker. My name is Rosalia Omungo. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of the African Genetic Biocontrol Consortium. Ama, over to you. And Momar?
Thanks. Okay. Thank you very much, Rosalia, for the wonderful introduction. And ladies and gentlemen, experts in the field of communication, scientists, researchers, and colleagues. It is a pleasant and wonderful moment for somebody like I. Pardon me if I go off a bit. Pardon me. I need to go off a bit. So we are here today, like Rosalia has already explained, to delve further into the issue of communicating emerging technologies. Now, before we go on to our keynote speaker, I just want us to introduce ourselves. Sorry. I just want us to think about the issue of misinformation. Have you encountered some form of misinformation, and how often? Would you want to show us? Would you want to go to the chat and then tell us a bit? We just need two people to tell us a bit about their encounter with misinformation, please. Thank you. Hello. Hello. Hello.
We can hear you, Oma. Please
Okay,
proceed.
thank you. Yes. Okay, thank you very much. I guess we can still move on and just for reflection, so you can reflect, even if you are unable to put up or to send us a message about your encounter with misinformation as far as it relates to emerging technologies. We would want to go on and hear our keynote speaker. She is obviously an expert, prepared, and experienced in some of these issues. She is a senior analyst at the Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security and a research associate in the Department of Environmental Health and Engineering at the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health. She conducts applied research on improving U.S. public health emergency preparedness and response, strengthening legal public health preparedness, addressing health misinformation in the U.S., building trust in public health, and countering disinformation on chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear threats. She is the lead author of the Practical Playbook for Addressing Health Rumors. Her past projects have focused on assessing One Health capacities for responding to transboundary zoonotic diseases, developing a global biorisk implementation and evaluation tool, and organizing bilateral biosecurity dialogues. She earned an MPH degree with a specialization in global health from the Brown School at Washington University in St. Louis, and a BS in biology with minors in religion and philosophy from Wake Forest University. Ladies and gentlemen, I introduce to you Ashwaya Naga, our keynote speaker. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was such a lovely introduction. Let me see if I can share my slides before we jump into things. Are you able to see my screen right now? Okay, can someone confirm? I think you can see my screen. I just want to make sure. Okay, you can see. Great, thanks. Well, thank you, everybody. I'm very excited to be here. My name is Aishwarya Nagar, and I'm, as was mentioned, at the Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security. I'm really excited to be here. If at any point you have questions or need me to slow down, just please feel free to put that in chat. But it is a massive privilege for me to chat with you today about information integrity and then what that means for when we're trying to communicate with confidence about emerging technologies, life sciences, public trust around these issues, and policy. I guess I should start by saying that right now, most of the applied research that my team and we've been doing on this topic is specific to preparing for and responding to public health emergencies. So I'll be pulling on a lot of practical experiences from health departments across the United States that have been dealing with this issue very hands-on, as well as some of the work we've been doing as part of the Global Partnership Initiative on countering WMD disinformation. So lots of different perspectives, and I'm really excited to learn from all of you here as well. So want to start by just forewarning, this is good practice when we're trying to communicate about misinformation, that you will see some false claims or some misleading claims ahead of this presentation. This is not an endorsement of those claims, and this is just to give you, to psychologically inoculate you against the claims, some of the claims that you're about to see. So want to put that out there before moving forward. I think it's important when we're talking about communication, misinformation, disinformation, to start by contextualizing everything in the information ecosystem or information environment within which we operate. It's incredibly complicated. You don't need me to tell you that. We love in the space of life sciences and when we're working with emerging technologies to think that just communicating accurate information is enough. If we just represent the science, if we just make sure that the science is strong and that we're communicating about it, it's enough. It's not. Unfortunately, there's just so many factors at play that then lead to the information we communicate to the world to be distorted or to be misperceived, misconceived. And this is because we live in a system of information disorder. That's where our information ecosystem is just really messed up. It's not just accurate information all the time. Sometimes there's fabricated content, manipulated content. Sometimes there's imposter content when genuine sources are being impersonated. These types of kind of information, these subsets of information disorder have scope for high harm, which is why we really want to look out for them. But there are some types that are kind of lower harm, but we still want to look out for them. So sometimes when people are communicating, there's a lot of false context, where genuine content is being shared, but there's false contextual information. Things are being cherry-picked, or some small kernel of truth is there, but otherwise everything else is kind of misleading. There's also, I'm sure you've seen false connections being made. This is especially the case with headlines or visuals or captions that actually don't support the content that we're reading or consuming. And then the lowest harm, but still with some propensity to affect the way we communicate, is satire or parody. Now, all of this exists in our ecosystem, which is full of so much disorder. There's misinformation, there's rumors, which is when unverified claims are circulating. And this is especially worrisome during the early stages of a crisis or an emergency when we really need to know certain information during uncertain times. So oftentimes rumors, misinformation, disinformation can fill information voids with false information, and that affects our health behaviors, our health outcomes, so on and so forth. We like to think that the incredible work that we do when we're developing emerging technologies or working in the life sciences, this amazing work we do, we like to think that we are doing a good job of communicating it to everybody in the world through research papers, through conference panels, through public-facing reports like the morbidity, mortality reports that the CDC in the US puts out. These, however, do not reach the general public that is at some point the intended recipient of our communications. What the people out there, just the layperson in the world, what they do see, however, are memes. They see posts on social media from influencers. They see news reports, they see their friends and families coming to them and circulating some kind of false claim. It doesn't even just have to be false claim. There's all sorts of rumors out there. The TikTok that is, or the Instagram post screenshot in the middle is one of my coworkers, Jessica Malati Rivera. She's an influencer who works very diligently in the space of countering health mis and disinformation and models good communication in that regard, especially when talking about um, emerging technologies, life sciences, infectious diseases, so on and so forth. So there's a disparity here in how we communicate about scientific concepts and how people actually consume information about scientific concepts. And there's a lot we need to do to bridge this gap, which is where our work here around communicating with confidence comes into play. And this matters because the information ecosystem about emerging technologies and life sciences has tangible impacts on people. It affects whether people adhere to public health measures and take up public health recommendations, which are life-saving in so many cases. It affects the uptake of technologies, oftentimes very helpful technologies that can make our lives much easier, much safer, and much better. It affects people's health behaviors and health outcomes. For example, during COVID-19, uh, the way we communicated affected whether people got vaccinated, whether they masked, whether they left their homes and practiced social distancing. It can also affect public trust in institutions, not only specific institutions like governments or academic universities, but also more nebulous institutions like science. There's very heavy distrust in science growing all over the world, including in the United States, which is where I live. There's tangible impacts for us to be worried about. That's why this matters. And there's so many factors that affect how we consume the information we consume that we have to think about when we're communicating about the work that we do. So, of course, there's who we are as individuals, our behavioral tendencies, the level of trust we have in institutions, whether we're able to verify information and discern between what is true and what is untrue, our cognitive processes, so biases, literacy, how we perceive risk, our beliefs, the actual formats and channels used to communicate with us, algorithms. Oh, let me just pause there. Does someone have a question? Oh, sorry. Just let me know if someone has a question and then I'll pause because I can't see the chat right now. Beyond that, beyond just kind of how we're receiving our information, it's the information we're actually receiving. Whether the messages we get are true, whether they're consistent, how they're framed, how simply they're communicated, and then, as Rosalia had mentioned, their emotional appeal, right? Whether they're sticky and whether they have narrative appeal, particularly whether they stoke fears. And of course, there's a broader sociocultural context within which we're consuming this information. So the networks we're part of, the social norms we practice, inequities in our society, polarization, especially political polarization in the United States, how we are socialized, as well as our media ecosystem, whether we're just consuming too much information all the time and being overloaded by it, or whether there just isn't enough information. And of course, how we govern information. So if we can consider all of these factors when trying to communicate with confidence, it's important to do so. I want to stress here that this whole conversation is about more than just mis or disinformation. Early on, when an emerging technology is introduced, or a new scientific concept is launched, or there's just some change in guidance, when there's a start of a crisis or an emergency, people almost always have questions or concerns. That's how this starts out. Then there are information voids, gaps in what we know, what we don't know. And if those information voids are left unfilled by accurate information, they can fester and rumors can stick and then become further entrenched as false narratives, which are less common but harder to address and have more potential for harm. But we have less information once that's where we are on the spectrum. Another thing to think about, but we won't spend too much time talking about this, is how people perceive risk. So Paul Slovic has done some amazing work around this. How do we perceive risk? If there are things that we dread, that we cannot see, that feel really globally catastrophic, uncontrollable, whether there's a high risk to future generations, then this means that we will perceive higher risk. And that does mean that things can get kind of out of hand. And even the most simple of information that we put out there could be misconstrued and it could snowball into misinformation and disinformation. But I don't want us just keep talking about the problem. I want us to leave with some feeling of what can we do to kind of chip away at this very nebulous issue. And here's some things we can do. We can start by helping people navigate uncertainty. I know a few panelists will talk about that later. We can help people, first of all, we can acknowledge uncertainty whenever we do launch a new emerging technology or trying to talk about a new scientific concept, which is where we share what is known, what is unknown, and what is being done to fill gaps in this knowledge. We can educate people early on scientific processes that are often taken to fill knowledge gaps. This is great, especially with thinking of COVID again, where new vaccines were coming out and people weren't trusting these vaccines. A big gap there was understanding how they actually work and the rigorous process it takes to maintain the safety or assess the safety of these vaccines. Of course, it's also important to be humble and to say we don't know when we actually don't know, but to leave people with some idea of what we are doing to find out what we don't know. I think it's also important to prepare audiences for evolving guidance, to set an expectation early that current guidance is based on the best available information we have, but it will likely change as the situation evolves, as we do more research, as we learn more, as our expertise transforms. So it's great to kind of help people navigate uncertainty through these concepts. We can anticipate the types of communication issues that will come up and proactively address them. There's a method of doing so called pre-bunking, and it's based on the theory of psychological inoculation, much like literal medical inoculation, like with vaccines. The idea is that if we forewarn people of impending misinformation and we refute it preemptively, then we generate these cognitive antibodies. It increases people's immunity to future misinformation and basically builds their resilience to believing in false claims when they do come across them. An example of this, especially in the kind of ChemBio, rad nuke disinformation space, looks like making sure there are policy briefs breaking down all the different tactics and narratives that are used to disinform us around biological, at least in the work that I do, chemical and biological activities, decisions, processes that might be very simple and innocuous, like a public health lab just doing good work to test samples. But the way people can miscommunicate about it either intentionally and it becomes misinformation, or unintentionally and that becomes misinformation, or intentionally and that becomes disinformation. So it's great to help anticipate these tactics and narratives that are used to disinform us and proactively counter them wherever possible. That leads to us building resilience to misinformation and disinformation. Some great approaches I've seen out there look like this, what's on the screen in front of you. So posts to help people understand, at least in the first example, why the flu virus changes and why we need a yearly flu vaccine to stay protected. I've seen more and more vaccine manufacturers proactively communicate this way when a new flu vaccine rolls around. We know this type of rumor, we know this claim will circulate every time there's a new flu, like a new flu vaccine. So we want to make sure we're proactively communicating about this. Another effective technique I've seen is helping people understand techniques of science denialism or logical fallacies that come up in claims that are used to disinform us. In some of the work that I've been doing around CBRN disinformation, we've been creating gamified tools to help people break down and understand and then therefore become resilient to disinformation around chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear concepts, whether it's in formal documents, which is the first example there, it's a snakes and ladders style roadmap, or in the remaining examples, which is where we turned these very predictable tactics and narratives into bingo. I don't know if people could react with whether they've played bingo before. Any emoji will do. I just want to make sure this is something rooted in something we actually do and a game we actually play. Because I like bingo. This is why we created this tool. And then finally, we can plan for challenges during research and development. And I think this is something very important for all of us to think about more intentionally. We do amazing work. While we are doing this amazing work, it's important for us to think about the ways our work could be misconstrued, misperceived, how it could get out of hand, how in the wrong context it could be just we don't want the important work we're doing to be misunderstood. And whether that's unintentionally or intentionally, it's important to think proactively about ways in which our work could be misconstrued. So an interesting example is biolabs. public health labs all over the world, and this is a conversation that often happens with US funded labs all over the world, are doing important work around testing samples, around building medical countermeasures. However, disinformation campaigns often paint them as very nefarious, as if they're creating bioweapons and spreading diseases. And so, if we are in a space of kind of working on cooperative threat reduction, it's important to have a strategy in place for handling this disinformation when it does come around. That's just one example. And then, of course, we want to fill the information ecosystem with good communications, whether that's using established practices like CERC, which is there's 6 principles of crisis, emergency, risk communication, or through really innovative social media communication. I love the Johns Hopkins School of Public Health account for this reason. They have a lot of memes and very accessible content that reaches a very broad array of people in a very accessible manner. It uses trends and humor and things that we'll see in our ecosystem otherwise, but uses that to explain scientific concepts or public health information. I also want to leave you with a few tools that I will drop links to all of these in chat. There's a practical playbook for addressing health rumors that was mentioned earlier, which is a tool that really anyone can use, but we did design it for public health and medical professionals to help us decide whether to address misleading rumors, how to do so, and what kind of messages we could develop. There's also a checklist for building trust and helping anticipate rumors, especially during public health emergencies. So this is a more big picture strategic tool. And then finally, the GP Countering WMD Disinformation Initiative has an incredible website where there are reports, there's tools, there's analyses, there's trackers, all kinds of incredible resources. And I will drop all of those in chat. But thank you so much for letting me give you a little bit of a framing remark about information integrity and why it matters to us. And I look forward to learning from all of you. Please let me know if you have any questions in chat. Thank you.
So let's, my colleague, Omar, can you come in? But before he
Yes,
does,
merci. Merci, Ama. Je voulais d'abord féliciter Ali Choubaria pour un peu le brillant exposé qu'elle vient de nous livrer. Je pense qu'on en apprend beaucoup de choses. Mais on peut en tirer aussi beaucoup d'interrogations, surtout par rapport au développement fulgurant, par exemple, de la science aujourd'hui. Moi, surtout si on met ce développement, tu vois, par rapport aux problèmes auxquels, par exemple, les journalistes comme moi sont confrontés en matière d'information scientifique. Mais avant, je voudrais simplement faire un petit récapitulatif un peu sur certains termes. Elle a très bien parlé un peu de la désinformation de manière générale, mais souvent, je pense que ce serait utile un peu de détricoter un peu cette désinformation-là, parce qu'aujourd'hui, on a peut-être quelque chose comme 3 termes qui peuvent être assimilés à des fake news, à de la désinformation. Donc, il y a la désinformation en tant que telle. Nous tous, nous le savons, c'est un peu une tromperie, quoi. C'est un peu une tromperie délibérée, volontaire par rapport à des événements qui surviennent. Donc, ça, c'est la désinformation. À côté, il y a la mésinformation qui est souvent une erreur volontaire, une erreur involontaire qui a pu être faite par un journaliste ou par une autre personne, mais ça commence à devenir différent quand même par rapport à la désinformation. Mais il y a aussi la malinformation qui est en fait que nous journalistes, on comprend comme le moyen d'utiliser une information vraie, par exemple, dans un mauvais contexte. Dans un mauvais contexte, souvent, ce serait pour déstabiliser, par exemple un adversaire politique ou bien un adversaire scientifique ou bien un adversaire économique, en tout cas sur le terrain du business. Je pense que ce sont des éléments-là qui peuvent aider les journalistes à comprendre un peu ces 3 éléments-là. Donc, la mésinformation, la désinformation, la malinformation. Je pense que vous l'avez très bien expliqué, mais de façon globale. Moi, la question que je me pose par rapport à ça, c'est un peu quel est le rôle des journalistes qui n'ont aucune culture scientifique. Aucune culture scientifique. Tu vois. Oui, Ama.
Okay. Please, may I come in? I will suggest, yes, the questions will come. And our dear keynote speaker, I pray that you just hold and let's receive the other presenters, because they'll also have views and insights into some of the very issues that you've raised, introducing us to the information ecosystem and what happens in there, that we don't take things for granted, that we are sharing information, and therefore, you are talking about science, you are talking about AI, and that is sufficient. I like that bit. So please, Mama, let's go to the next presenter. And please, participants, note your questions, note to who the questions will go to. And then when we are done with receiving the other presentations, we'll go on to the discussion. So Mama, don't lose your question either. Please note it down. So can you introduce the next speaker for us? The first presenter, please.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Can I go on and introduce the first speaker, Mama?
Yes.
Okay. So the first speaker is going to take us into understanding the information threat landscape. We have been introduced to the information ecosystem, and he is coming to touch on the threat, the information threat within that ecosystem, that is the landscape. So I introduce to you Dr. Jean Kiberi of Auda, Nepal, and he's going to define some concepts for us: misinformation, disinformation, malinformation, scientific uncertainties, and coordinated manipulation. And like I said, please let's listen attentively and then note our questions down. Please, the floor is yours. Thank you. Or the air is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Mariama. So I'm Jean Kebere, as she said. I am the communication officer of ADNA part, ADNE in Dakar. I'm really delighted to be with you today here in this webinar. And we are going to, let me show my screen. Can you see? Yes. Okay. So the topic today is communicating emerging technology with confidence. And I'm going to talk about some of these concepts. I will not go back to disinformation, malinformation, and misinformation, as we talked a lot about it in the last session and even today. My communication will focus more on our experience with misinformation on the ground in the African continent.
Okay. All right.
So first of all, we all know that modern biotechnologies are relatively new in our countries. And there is a lot of myths and misconceptions going on. It appears that some of our approaches were not effective to counter these myths and misconceptions. Bridging the gap between theory and practice in communicating biotechnology may help us resolve the apparent socio-ethical dilemma in most African countries, focusing on trust. The debate around the technology among scientists and stakeholders focused for a long time on the risk and the safety aspects, with little attention to non-safety aspects, which involve all these perceptions we are talking about today. So in this tension between evidence-based argument and non-scientific aspects, an adequate communication approach is necessary to really de-escalate the tension between science and values. As I said, we all know that Africa is believed to be one of the most religious continents, and we can't afford to not address such issues. Here, just to show a little bit of the background for communication, the biosafety communication, we identified 4 pillars, especially in our African context, for communication to really be based on trust and consensus. One of the first pillar is, of course, science, which help communicate the safety of the technology. And then we have the regulatory aspects, which also address some of the concerns, how the technology is regulated to make it reliable. And then the ethical aspects, which is based mainly on perceptions. Most of the time, it was not adequately addressed, as my colleague just talked about it. We leave the void, the communication void, to activists, and they fill it with a lot of misconceptions. And then we have the socioeconomic pillar, addressing gains and losses, to show the evidence that the technology can benefit our countries. So each aspect needs to be taken into account in communicating the technology to really address all the concerns on the ground. With AGNAPAD, African Biotechnology Network of Expertise, our approach basically is that first, our overall objective is to support countries in building functional biosafety regulatory systems in Africa, which means that we focus more on the regulatory aspects and to really give confidence to decision makers, to policymakers, and the public in general. And as shown on the graph in the middle of the slide, you can see that, you can see that there are also 3 aspects here. First, we create and enable a policy environment for the technology to be really accepted in the field if it proves beneficial. Secondly, we have the training aspects where we strive to attain a critical mass of regulators, reviewers, policymakers, and different segments of stakeholders that can really support the process. And then we have the third part, networking, which is very, very important also, to work with all leaders who can really support the process. And importantly, we support international negotiation, partnerships, and also we offer learning opportunities. Our service delivery platform relies on 4 aspects also. As you can see on the graph, in the graph on left. First of all, information resources. Then we have also training and education, and technical support and consultation and networking. And the training and education aspect is very, very important here, where we focus on workshops, short courses, online courses, study tours, and internship. And our communication principles are mostly based on objectivity, transparency, credibility, and inclusiveness. This means we take most of the segment of the population, we take account of them in our interactions. I want here to really share some elements of biotech and biosafety communication experience tackling activism or misinformation on the ground. We noticed that biosafety communication is context specific. We cannot just import success from a country to another without adapting it to each context. The importance of listening also was showed. We realized that we talk a lot. Scientists also share a lot of information, but do we really listen to people on the ground, to beneficiaries? This is a very important aspect if we want to really reach a kind of consensus, social consensus. Unlike in developed countries, as I said, ethical considerations are still strong on our continent and need to be addressed. The importance also of profiles and role mapping in carrying out our communication strategies. Not everybody can talk about everything. In our case, we focus on regulatory aspects, as I said, and we leave the scientific, the promotion of science to industry, and the promotion of the technology to scientists and industry. It's also important to identify the information and communication needs on the ground, as I said, based on the context, and the presence of anti-GM groups need also to be adequately addressed, because we realize that not all those who are strongly opposed to the technology are really sincere. Most of them are like agents of foreign groups who just want to oppose the technology. And this segment also need to be addressed adequately. My predecessor also talked about addressing biases, and in Africa also we have a lot of these biases. And one of them I just want to point out here is the preconception of the reverse effect of biotechnology. This means that most of the people on the ground, I don't know how this happened, but they just say about the technology the contrary effect that the technology is supposed to produce. Like they say that biotech products are full of chemicals, while the technology helps reduce the use of chemicals. The importance also of having a critical path analysis of biosafety communication to know where to really put all our efforts to tackle the misinformation and miscommunication on the ground. There are critical paths to really identify and be able to support the process. There are also social powers who can influence the views of the public, and we need to have them on board and see how to really take advantage of that. We have also set up an African biosafety communication network to help address some of these issues, where we share information, we develop strategies to proactively address rising matters in each country. And I will lastly talk about these early warning systems in relevant countries to have an adequate response in case of any matter arising and any crisis. I think I will stop here for now. We'll go deeper in the different concepts in the discussion. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Doc, for introducing us to the Elder NEPAD objective in developing our country using the emerging science of biotechnology. And it's good for us to be reminded, especially the media people here, of the fact that as far as the AU is concerned, you are supporting countries, and you are very, very much supportive of countries in developing and building a functional biosafety regulatory system in Africa. And so for us in the media, it's important for us to note this particular objective. Please, Mama, are you ready to introduce the next speaker to us?
Oui, oui, l'intervenant suivant, c'est Monsieur Jean Odongo. C'est Jean Odongo. Voilà. Enfin, est-ce que je n'ai pas exactement son profil. Hein. Je n'ai pas son profil. Joseph Odongo, le speaker. Joseph Odongo, il est expert technologique en système global de santé.
Yes,
C'est un expert. Yes. Monsieur Odongo, vous avez la parole. Je pense que vous pouvez vous présenter vous-même. Ouais. OK.
Okay, thank you very much, our moderator. I don't know whether you are able to see my screen.
Not yet.
Not yet. Now, are you able to see my screen?
Yes, yes.
Oui, ça va. Oui, ça va,
Yes.
on voit.
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Odongo Joseph, and I'm glad to be part of this team, and I will be doing a very short presentation on the application of AI, artificial intelligence, and other technology in either addressing or amplifying science communication. So I will be...
Est-ce que M. Odongo peut se faire une petite présentation? Est-ce que M. Odongo peut faire une brève présentation de son profil?
Thank you. Just a minute. Yeah, I'm hearing twice, so it's giving me a challenge on my end, but I think it's okay.
Okay.
speaking in English, but it's okay. I will manage. Yeah. So basically, I'm Odongo Joseph. As it has been mentioned, my background is I'm a specialist in molecular microbiology, but currently I've pivoted in AI biotechnology intersection. So basically in this presentation, I will be focusing on application of AI in science communication and basically what benefit or disadvantage does it pose to scientist community when we are communicating science. So allow me to project my slides now. I don't know whether you're able to see my slides. Hello?
Oui, on voit très bien, ça passe.
Hello, are you able to see
Ça passe
my...
très bien, vous pouvez continuer.
Okay, thank
Yes,
you.
we can
Yeah,
see
so-
your screen.
Yeah, so kindly, okay, thank you. So I'm going to do a very brief presentation on the application of AI, the synthetic media, and the emerging information that we are seeing all over, and how we can safeguard in this era in relation to science communication. Yeah, so I'll begin by mentioning, I know my colleague, the first presenter, spoke about the aspect of pre-bunking and debunking. And I'm very happy that, he brought this concept very well, because it's something that I was also going to touch on, is that, as communicators, as scientists, we focus much on debunking, forgetting that there is efforts that we need to put in pre-bunking, because with the emergence of AI in communication and what we are seeing in social media, there are a lot of information that are getting trending and getting out into the media that, when you start now doing debunking, you will not catch up with the damage that already has been caused. So I want to mention that the focus is not only on the fake content, but we also have to understand the interaction. Where are those content coming from? Where are the actors? What are the algorithms that are being used? How can we trust those sources? And who is really behind amplifying the kind of information that we are seeing in the social media or platform? So basically, AI has a dual capability, and a dual capability in essence that it can be used to magnify false information and in a convincing and very scalable manner. And at the same time, it can be used to really detect fake information, misinformation, disinformation, and counter such existence. So I will mention that we cannot only look at AI in one perspective, but it has two different angles that I'm going to look at as I do my presentation. So I know many people has always consider artificial intelligence as emerging technology, but ideally, as we look at it as a general purpose tool, it is a tool that assists, it can enable various domains, various sectors in terms of facilitating research, in terms of even coming up with contents that can really communicate information that is authentic. At the same time, it can be used to mislead and cause harm in terms of giving wrong information. So as I've mentioned, these are some of the areas that we can really apply artificial intelligence, and I can also attest to the fact that AI or other bots that are used in this scope, we cannot inherently say that they're the problem. No, the key effort, the key responsibility still lies with us, the communicators, the scientists, the journalists, because we can come up with safeguards. We are the ones who come up with the safeguards. We're the ones who come up with policy and regulations that really regulate these AI tools. So as I've mentioned earlier, AI tools can generate convincing and false content at scale. But at the same time, we can use the same AI tool to fact check and claim verify and also help us to debunk some of the information that we get there in the media. Yeah, we've always seen these deepfake materials. You know, these are videos, they are audios, they are images that are, you know, they are being generated, and some of them are being even used to personify some people. Where we have seen it in the media. So some might even appear to be very true, but in real sense, they are not authentic. So these are some of the challenges that now present in this new era of communicating science. The same time, those deepfake images that you are seeing around the audio, the video, you know, with same time we can apply AI in authenticating and being able to develop trust by identifying if they are real or they are just media items that are being used to manipulate your thinking. Yeah, so we have had misleading claims, especially in regard to emerging technology like gene editing, GMOs, you see, and all those stories. And you know, recently I happened to attend a global biotechnology conference, and you will see many scientists are still in a dilemma in addressing issues of misinformation and how misinformation is widely affecting the technology uptake, which even includes how do we now, you know, address issues of acceptance with the society, because at the rate at which you know, this misleading information articles are being generated cannot catch up with the rate at which the regulators or the civil society that wish to give right information. We cannot be at par with them, because you know, we take a long process to verify, okay, to come up with content, you know, even to validate the content that we want to communicate in terms of demystifying the information that has already caused damage. So it's a big challenge, and it's something that really needs a serious and concerted efforts. Yeah, so some of the enablers that can really help us ensure responsible use of these tools, because they can really also assist us in accelerating the right information and informing a wider population, is having regulations, governance, and policies that are domain specifics, that addresses some of those issues. Transparencies and issues of accountability are very key. You know, issues to do with privacy. I know, for example, in Kenya, we are very lucky now that we have data protection policy, which is a very pivotal in helping us to address some of the issues that can be associated with, you know, circulating misinformation and disinformation. There's also a need for digital and scientific literacy. We've come to a realization that, you know, so many people now in the public domain are not able to differentiate contents that have been generated by AI vis-a-vis the content that are realistic and communicate real information. And this requires a concerted effort. It requires a collaboration. It requires a partnership between scientists, between different stakeholders, and even the journalists, so that we could speak from the same point of view in reference to technology. I wanted also to mention just something between why false information spread fast in the internet. And I also wanted to re-emphasize that even as scientists, we contribute a lot towards, you know, this false information that you will find in the social media. Because, you know, I came to the realization that when you are, you know, you are speaking from an evidence point of view, something that has been, research has been done on, and the substantial evidence as you can attest to it as a scientist, and you post it somewhere in the social media, few people will be interested, even your fellow scientists, that really acknowledge that, no, very well, this information that this particular scientist is talking about, it is true. Yeah, for example, it is true that Kenya has, commercialized BT cotton, and so far, since we have commercialized BT cotton as a country, there is no any adverse effect that has been associated or has come out from the farmers. You find that information in the social media, nobody will like it, even nobody will comment about it. But when somebody brings out an information that cannot even be justified, a very false information, you will find even scientists commenting that is wrong. But you by just giving that comment, you are giving that particular post, a high engagement. And the system, how these social media systems works. They work in a way that they do not recognize or appreciate, validity or the truthfulness on the kind of information that you're communicating, but they focus on engagement. How is this context that we have been posted in LinkedIn? How are people engaging? You receive so many likes, you receive both negative and positive comments, and at the end of the day, even you scientists who want to demystify by just giving a comment below that posting, you will really be contributing to overall engagement in the social media. So that's how we have also contributed negatively to us. So I will also encourage us that we need to be supportive and also speak out and support other scientists as they also continue to communicate information that we know very well that is synthetic and that is even associated with the sources that we understood, so that they also just get engagement, they also just get likes, yeah, like other contents. And this is how we are really being defeated in the social media atmosphere. So why is it that information that is false will really spread, will be swiftly be optimized for engagement? This is because naturally, as human beings, we are emotional beings, and in most circumstances, emotion beats accuracy. So if you see an advert or a post outside there in the media that is really surprising, it really triggers anger or fear, you will also give it a like, you will comment, and you will share. You are not you are not bothered to know the source, even what is the objective behind this kind of information. And that is how human beings we are. And that is why sometimes in science communication, we say that, having facts as a scientist does not confirm to you that really the public will accept what we're talking about. There are other forces, there are other issues that come into play, and some of them is what we believe on, how our cultures, how we have been brought, how we reason, and even our social dialect, and even how we express ourselves. All these things contribute to what kind of information we agree with, we absorb. So it is not only scientific component, that this is something that has been studied, tested, and confirmed to be safe as its conventional counterpart, so we can use it. The public will not really like it, but will be one of the components, but there are other influencing factors. So as communicators, we should also consider these other influencing factors, for me, which I classify them under psychographic narratives that really informs how people reason and how best we can create targeted information that can help us address the misleading or demystify some of the information that we are having out there. So that is the one component that really assists in optimizing, engaging in the kind of information that is posted outside there. The second one is algorithmic amplify engagement. I've already mentioned this. Platform prioritize content that generates strong interactions. So you generate strong interaction by clicking, by liking, by commenting, either positive or negative. I've been always posting a lot. If you look at my LinkedIn profile, you see I have been always posting a lot in form of video, audio, images, a lot of communications that are really simplified on biotechnology and basically biotechnology products. You'll find few people are engaging with my content or even liking or clicking, but you'll find somebody, speaking contrary you'll find other people commenting. And by doing that, even you are now contributing to that negative information reaching a larger population online, because that is how most of search engine optimization have been made. They optimize on content that really generates strong interaction, strong engagements. So speed advantage is also an impact to us. For example, for us, when we hear an information that is not right, you find that as an organization or as an entity that focuses in science communication, we want to sit down, we want to have a meetings, we want to discuss, we want even to validate the information that now will get up there. This is time bound. So by the time you are releasing your position on what has been spread, the misinformation that is already outside there, we are past pre-bunking, we are past, we are now dealing with controversy. And this is what is now making us to be in a very awkward situation. I'm happy with one thing that I learned when I attended the Global Biotechnology Conference in Michigan. They mentioned that, even as communicators, even as scientists, as we organize for debates, engagement, it should be intelligent-led debate. Don't just wake up and say, tomorrow we are going to have a debate with this, anti blah, blah, blah. And for us, we will be saying this or this, then they will be saying this. No, there's many perceptions that, guides on what I perceive and what I will take to be the truth. I might be saying something that is false, but the way I present myself, the way I deliver on that information will be convincing to the public, as compared to you is things that, you are confident and you have the scientific information that you think this is the right thing for the public. So these are some of the things also we learned through the process, that, the issues of speed, the issue of confirming biasness, and how long does we take even to counterreact, and even how do we counteract, okay, play a major role in spreading false information. We feel sometimes that we are addressing, and no, we are not addressing, we are just creating more problems. So people are more likely to believe and share things that confirm what they already believe on. So what I believe in might not be true, but when I see somebody sharing something that associated with that, I will be more willing to share, I will be more willing to like, and I will be more willing to comment. And by doing that, I'm giving a very good digital space to continue spreading false information. So we need to also be careful as we interact. So many people have also become smart by using bots, by using coordinated amplification systems. These are systems that can behave just like you can go to your YouTube channel, like and write a comment. So bots can also perform the same. And these are some of the things that also we need to counter when we want to ensure that the information out there about the specific domain that we are discussing is appropriate and is fulfilling our objective. And the first presenter mentioned that not sometimes, it is always advisable to be honest and say what has been done, what is possible, and what is missing. There is no wrong in, as a scientist, mentioning that these are the gray areas that we're having pertaining to this technology, and these are the safeguards we have put in place to ensure that as we continue learning and gaining more intelligence on this, this is what we can allow, and this is how we intend to go about it. Those are the things that the public tend. But when we only one-sided, as much as we are speaking the truth, the public also, they make their own determination and say, no, we think this is something we should not trust, and we should go with what is simple, what we are able to, the people we are able to listen to. Yeah. So correction, fact check take longer to reach people and rarely get the same attention. I think I've mentioned this when I was talking about confirmation bias, that organizations, individuals in this space of science communication, they will really take time to fact check. They will take time to respond back, because there's a hierarchy, there's a procedure of communication that you need to adhere to. So all this, by the time you are communicating, you know, you are just debunking, and also you are dealing with a controversy. You are dealing with something that was already broken. And that is where I really agree with the first presenter that sometimes you also need to have a pre-banking initiative. So which means science communication should be involved in entire process. For example, if it is a product development, from the time you are doing a research to the time you are having that final product, you must embrace public engagement and public participation to ensure that the public is well informed and they can also make informed decision based on the kind of right knowledge they gain from the experiences. And by doing that, we shall be addressing these issues of misinformation. So I wanted to take more time on that. And I think if you can see in my second slide, and this is something that practically was done elsewhere. On my right-hand side, we have a very good quote. Don't believe everything you read on the internet just because their picture with they have a picture with a quote next to it. Abraham Lincoln. You see, the information is right, but this information was never, this quote was never communicated by Abraham Lincoln. And these are the kind of information we end up spreading because we don't need to even know the source. We don't need to know whether, you know, it is anyway, is there any time in the lifetime of Abraham Lincoln that he mentioned that quote? You know, it is not true. Okay. So we really need to understand the kind of information we are hearing about and what action are we taking by going beyond just seeing the fake content, but understanding the origin, the source, the intention behind it, and also, you know, what is the subsequent effect. So looking at my left-hand side, you see, this is one of the information that I've seen online there that has never has not gained more social media engaged as compared to the one on Abraham Lincoln. And it speaks about BT cotton contains a gene from Bacillus thuringiensis that enable the plant to produce a protein that controls certain insect pests. And this guy has gone ahead even to mention that it's a scientific fact, and this is the source. And you'll find few people are associating with this because of so many issues that are associated with that communication. But I want to mention that this information is really authentic. It is true. Yeah, this is the source and this is the position. But now the one that's on the right that is not true, that is not in any way associated with Abraham Lincoln is the one that will receive more like and will be spread. Why is so? It is so because
Hello, Dr. Odongo.
Yes.
I'm sorry, but your time is up. So if you
Is
can
up.
wrap up quickly, yes, please.
Yes, allow
If you
me to
can
wrap
wrap
up
up
with this.
quickly in just 2 minutes, please.
Okay.
2 minutes.
So thank you very much. Thank you very much. So I wanted to conclude by mentioning that you know, there is a study that our country currently also focusing on understanding the gaps between quality and in-depth information in a specific domain and the experts involved, and now the scientists, and in correlation to non-expert, that is the public, in regard to the same information. The expert, they tend to have a lot of information as compared to non-experts, and this creates what we call information asymmetry. And this information asymmetry is what now leads to what we are talking about: misinformation, disinformation, and even malinformation. That there are so many issues that really contribute to this. One aspect being even the info hazards that are being created by the experts in those fields. So I don't want to venture much of that because of time. Allow me just to conclude by demonstrating on this slide. Yeah, that
please. I'm Dr. Odongo. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry.
I can conclude it.
Yeah. What will happen is that there is even a question for you here, and so
Yes.
I'm sure you'll be able to give us the conclusion that you've
Okay.
drawn on this one. I'm sorry, but we need to draw the curtain on this formal presentation. Definitely, we're going to come back to you. Thank you so much. Thank you very
Okay,
much.
thank you.
Before we go on to our next speaker, I would like my colleague to share one or two highlights from Dr. Odongo's, and we need to be conscious of the time because there are a lot of questions and contributions that have come there. So we need to be fast. So Moma, if you want to share one or two highlights, then I'll bring in the next speaker. Thank you.
Oui, merci. Merci, Ama. J'ai relevé que plusieurs éléments d'ailleurs dans la présentation du Dr Dongo. Le premier élément que j'ai recueilli, c'est un peu ce qui dit un peu de la surveillance et de la surveillance que nous devons avoir des outils d'intelligence artificielle et surtout de l'intelligence artificielle génératrice. Je pense que c'est un élément extrêmement important pour un meilleur rendu des nouveautés scientifiques. À ce niveau, parce que lui-même l'a dit, à partir de l'intelligence artificielle générative, beaucoup de désinformations ont été suscitées sur les réseaux sociaux. Un deuxième point que je peux mettre en relief à partir de l'exposé du Dr Dongo, c'est la crédibilité des sources pour crédibiliser l'information. Je pense que ça aussi, c'est une étape importante. Enfin, c'est un sujet extrêmement important pour tous les journalistes, parce qu'à partir de la crédibilité des sources, on peut voir est-ce que l'information est crédible ou pas, même sans faire du fact-checking, même sans faire de l'investigation journalistique. Le troisième élément que je veux mettre en public, que je veux mettre en relief, c'est un peu le besoin d'amplification des engagements pris autour, par exemple, d'une bonne information qui circule sur les réseaux sociaux. Je pense que ça participe à faire en sorte que l'information publique soit quelque part respectée. Et le dernier point, c'est un peu le...
Okay.
Juste un dernier point. Il a dit quelque chose qui me paraît important. Il a cité 3 ou 4 éléments que je trouve fondamentaux pour l'information scientifique. C'est la source, c'est l'objectif, c'est l'intention et c'est l'origine. Je pense que ce sont des éléments extrêmement importants pour donner une vraie vie informationnelle à une information. Merci, Ama.
Okay, thank you, Mama. Thank you very much, and sorry for keeping you waiting. Masuku, please, our apologies. We haven't done very well with time at this time, but I want to say that our next presenter is Buzizo. I hope I'm right. Pardon me if I'm not. Who serves as the Senior Biosafety and Biosecurity Technical Officer at the African Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. He leads the implementation of the Continental Health Agency's Biosafety and Biosecurity Initiative, which is a program developed to strengthen the biosafety and biosecurity capabilities of African Union member states. So over to you. I'm sorry for being letting you wait so much, but I also know that you're going to go straight to the point with us, so that we'll have a lot of time for the questions that are coming. Thank you. Over to you, please.
Thank you so much, Madam Mary. Good day to our hosts, your fellow moderator and my fellow panelists, and distinguished participants. I hope I am audible.
Yes, you are.
So initially I didn't have a presentation, but I just thought it also may be prudent that as I share my remarks, I also speak to a few slides. I will be concise. I've just prepared a particular statement, really, which I feel is pertinent to give you a perspective from the institution that I represent, the Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, particularly in what we have done from a programming perspective to maintain public trust. So I think it's important that I just walk through the elements. I'll try to speed through them so that we have time to make some reflections. I'm grateful to the African Genetic Biocontrol Consortium for inviting me to contribute to this very important and timely discussion on building confidence when communicating about emerging technologies. So for those that may not know, the Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, Africa CDC, is a specialized technical health agency of the African Union. It is headquartered in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. It assists member states in strengthening health systems and responding quickly to public health emergencies, such as recent regional disease outbreaks. So as you all know, Africa remains vulnerable to public health emergencies for various reasons, including climate change, unplanned urbanization, poor infrastructure, ecological pressures, frequent zoonotic spillovers of pathogens. Thus, Africa faces frequent recurrent disease outbreaks and public health emergencies with over 150 emerging events every year and unprecedented social and economic consequences impacting the lives and livelihoods of communities. Today, Africa is gripped by yet another such biological event, which is the ongoing Bundibujo Ebola outbreak in Central and Eastern Africa. I'm currently on mission, at a regional mission in the Republic of Uganda, and I'm delighted to share congratulations to them. With a little over 2 weeks ago, they officially declared an end to 2026 Ebola outbreak in the country, just under 3 months of it. And this bears testament to the outbreak preparedness and response capabilities the country has. Despite the extreme pressures on public health vulnerabilities and risks, the overall decline in official development assistance, ODA, over the last 5 years, the impacts of consequences of COVID-19 pandemic, African Union member states have progressed towards better preparedness and building a resilient health security system. So African member states have really shown development of major core capacities. Just to give some insight, Africa CDC's detection of public health events within seven days improved from 39% in 2022 to 57.8% in 2025, and we're targeting a rise to 70% by the end of 2026. Moreover, Africa CDC has supported member states to establish and strengthen public health emergency operation centers and national public health institutions, and have expanded the diagnostic capacity of member states with molecular detection and genomic sequencing capacity to 49 of the 55 AU member states. It is quite important, really, to give you this background, as I will be sharing my perspectives in relation to the program that I lead at Africa CDC, which is the Biosafety and Biosecurity Initiative that was launched at the AU Commission in 2019 as a visionary and timely intervention to strengthen the African Union member states' biosafety and biosecurity systems and capabilities. Its goal was to strengthen biosafety and biosecurity systems for AU member states to comply with international regulations, including IHR, Biological Weapons Convention, as well as UN 1514. It provided an innovative regional approach required to mitigate identified and biosecurity and biosecurity gaps and vulnerabilities. So really, this is just giving you a timeline from inception to 2025. And really, here, what I wanted to highlight is that from a programming perspective, we put in the frameworks and the structures to support the member states in domesticating some of in their response to some of these challenges and developing capabilities in biosafety and biosecurity, as well as the matter that we are discussing today. Now, moving forward, so these are some of the milestones, just to give you an example of the frameworks that have gone into place. But I wanted to speak a bit more about our 2026 to 2030 strategy, which is a future-backed strategy that builds on the momentum from the first 5 years. We are shifting focus from regional establishment to national ownership, from coordination to institutionalization, from dependency to sustainability. So this strategy is anchored on 7 pillars of strategic and programmatic action. Right now on the slide, I'm displaying 3 enabling pillars which speak to the work at Africa CDC, the work that we're doing with regional technical working groups, and pillar number 3, which really is key for our discussion today, where we are looking at establishing innovation and emerging technologies as a cross-cutting pillar. And I'll speak a little bit more about that. I'll dwell mostly on that point. We have 4 other pillars. These are based on established frameworks. These are operational pillars. And one of the reasons why I'm really dwelling on this particular point is that by implementing these interventions, these frameworks, these structures in our member states, what we are doing is we're developing a process where we can garner public trust. Currently here in Uganda, we are training trainers in biosecurity and sample management who are going to work specifically in their respective countries in the at-risk member states in terms of the outbreak, in the safe handling of specimens. You can imagine how having these experts on the ground enhances or builds trust within the communities in terms of the information and the efforts that are going on there. Now, really key in terms of establishing our innovation and innovation in emerging technologies as an emerging pillar. One of the core elements that we are looking to do within these 5 years is to develop a continental guidance framework for responsible research, innovation, governance, and ethical application of emerging technologies such as artificial intelligence, synthetic biology, digital biology surveillance, automation, data governance in biosafety and biosecurity. And I think as you are hearing me going through those details, you can see what the previous speakers have been alluding to, that from a continental body, we are supporting and putting the structures in place where member states and private entities can also support countries in developing these capacities. So also here we are looking at facilitating partnerships with research institutions, public sector innovators. So you can see that the solutions we are looking to building within space need to be Africa-driven and Africa-led. So they have, and I saw this earlier in one of the presenters talking about the need for context specificity. So when you are coming to confidence that we have in the public when we are responding to public health emergencies, you can imagine how misinformation can influence or affect the response to outbreaks. I'm sure you have seen a lot of reports from the different regions where some of the public health facilities have been overrun by some of the communities, really due to, in some respects, to the misinformation that is out there in the public. So we need more skilled and competent individuals that are able to support our initiatives. The keynote address, the speaker spoke about this element, the G7-led partnership on countering WMD, weapons of mass destruction, disinformation. So this is a global initiative. And why I'm highlighting this, I'll gloss over it, is I wanted to bring to the fore a practical example of how when we have structures, we are then able to effectively channel our support. So one such program still within the G7, particularly in the Signature Initiative to mitigate biological threats in Africa through the biosecurity and biosurveillance pillar. We are having support for our biosecurity response to the Ebola outbreak in the Democratic Republic of Congo and Uganda. And the activity that I'm here for is on capacity building. And really here, this speaks to developing competent capacity that will develop context-relevant experts who will serve as trusted messengers of the risks that are present within the different communities. The context relevance here will inspire community-sensitive engagement that is grounded in sound science, be it based on cultural norms, be it based on language, but really we are looking to ensuring that the messaging that comes out from outbreak response and some of the public health response initiatives are really grounded in technical expertise, and the messaging is correct and accurate at all times. I think I will pause there in the interest of time, and thanking you, Madam Moderator, and colleagues for your attention.
Thank you very, very much. Masuku, is that correct? Have I mentioned your name well?
Yes.
Thank you so much for giving us.
Correct. You call me Z.
Okay, thank you for giving us an insight into this wonderful initiative, and you know, for extending an invitation to the key and expert individuals who can really support this initiative to become well established on the ground, especially considering what you have in mind and how to push forward the initiatives within the African context, ensuring that biosafety, biosecurity plays the role that it has to play within our health systems, and even not just beyond, in every area of our lives. So thank you all very much. Panelists, please, Dr. Kiberi, forgive us for not introducing initially. I'm definitely going to do that. In Ghana, we say sign kofa. It means if you forget something and you go back and do it, you know, it's an excellent thing. So we'll do that. But before we do that, I quickly want to pick some of the things we've had from our chat, and then my colleague will come in with some of the, we'll invite participants. If you want to ask a question, you can, you know, use the raise your hand, or we have some questions here, so we'll go to it. Someone, Evans says, in real life, I have, that is when our keynote speaker was speaking. In real life, I've encountered misinformation about AI on social media. I think it wasn't the keynote speaker, but the other one, where people claim that AI can already read people's minds and predict exactly what will happen in their future. I have also encountered misinformation about biotechnology, such as claims that genetically modified organisms are always harmful to human health. These are comments, if one of you wants to answer it. But then let's go to, he says this one, okay, somebody is asking for the slides to be shared. Definitely our wonderful CEO is going to ensure that we get access to the slide. But there is this information to the host and to the panelists. So any one of you, the panelists who want to answer, please, you go ahead with it. It's from Mulumba. Which one do you think is a bigger problem and more dangerous in Africa? Misinformation or disinformation? So this is targeted at any one of you presenters. Disinformation or misinformation, which one is the biggest problem in Africa? Okay, please, I think we'll handle this and then we'll get back to the rest. Yes, so any of you, after this, my colleague will come in, scroll down and pick some of the questions. Mama, please. Yes, who will answer this for us? Which one is the biggest?
Thank you very much.
Okay.
I just wanted to comment on the first one. You mentioned the first one. I think it's like of form of a question, and also it appears to be a comment.
Actually, it's to you, because he's come back again and he's saying the question is to you. So it's good you are starting. So please go on with that, and please be concise for us. Thank you.
Yeah, the first concern is about the online, the social media information, and he mentioned that, you know, he has come across information that AI can actually read your mind and predict your future. I think that is misinformation in itself. It is really not true. We have not advanced to that level. What I can mention that is most of this large language models that we have, whether they're ChatGPT, Perplexity, Claude, they are based on the kind of data that exists online. Kind of this data, some of them are synthetic, they're artificially generated, and some of them are based on already existing data that we've generated from different. So that is how AI works. They can study. It's actually based on the data that exists online, and that's how they can really make the final output. The final output of any AI is always in two scenarios. It can be hallucinated or exaggerated in that case, or it can be realistic based on the user. So AI in its existence is not a problem. A problem is the user and the intention. That's why we are saying AI should be governed. I think there's another question that I don't want to take more time on this, but I will be clarifying more because I've seen another question on how we can regulate those kind of information. When I'm given time on that, I will clarify more on that. Otherwise, thank you very much.
Thank you. Mama, would you want to read some of the other questions we have on the Q&A? You've seen the Q&A? Yes, please, go on.
Oui, il y a quelqu'un qui demande, qui dit que parfois la question n'est pas toujours aussi tranchée. Par exemple, il dit que dans le cas soulevé par Evan concernant les OGM, les organismes génétiquement modifiés, les effets ne sont peut-être pas néfastes pour la santé, mais ces effets peuvent en revanche causer de graves répercussions économiques. La question c'est, dans de tels cas, comment mettez-vous en place les mécanismes nécessaires pour lutter contre la désinformation ou les informations erronées, c'est-à-dire la désinformation et la malinformation ou la mésinformation. Voilà, c'était ça la question.
OK.
Qui peut la prendre?
Is Doc here? Yes, please, Dr. Ashwaya. Are you around? Our keynote speaker, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Hi.
Please, can you attend to that question for us? Did you hear it?
No, sorry, my Wi-Fi is really bad. Does someone mind summarizing it?
Please, Moma, can you
Oui,
go over the
je vais lui lire la question. Je vais lire la question. Parfois, la question, ce qu'il demande, c'est, comme dans le cas soulevé par Evan concernant les OGM, les effets ne sont peut-être pas néfastes pour la santé, mais ces effets peuvent en revanche avoir de graves répercussions économiques. Il dit comment il faut faire pour mettre en place des mécanismes nécessaires pour lutter contre la désinformation et les informations erronées. C'est un peu ça la question.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, thanks. I appreciate that question. I think so the work that my team has been doing with health departments has been interesting in this regard because not all rumors warrant a response. If we responded to every single rumor we come across, if we responded to every false claim, every misleading claim, we would not get our jobs done at all. And so I think there is important work we have to do individually and within our institutions to think about what process we have in place for deciding whether we even respond to rumors like that. If there and part of that answer, part of that decision-making framework is deciding whether maybe something is serious enough that it's affecting the company's bottom line. It is causing people to like it's really changing their behaviors or their outcomes or something like that. For some people, even one rumor circulating at all around a specific topic is enough to trigger action. So from the situation that I'm in, I would have a different risk assessment than someone whose whole business model is premised on producing or working with GMOs. And if a rumor like that affects their ability to do their business, affects their ability to do their research, then it's a problem to them. So I think the decision to respond depends heavily. It's just such an institutional process. It's a very personal process. The playbook has some guidance on how to make that decision, but unfortunately, I have a classic answer. It depends.
Thank you. There was also a question earlier about which is the most prominent, if I can use the word prominent, issue in Africa that we face. Is it disinformation or misinformation? So from your perspective, how will you help us understand that?
Yeah, and caveat that I do not have expertise specific to disinformation, misinformation in Africa. But from what I know, unfortunately, it's a case of both are a problem for different reasons. So a lot of the work that I've been doing around disinformation focuses on state-sponsored and state-adjacent disinformation, and that is definitely a problem in Africa. There is state-sponsored disinformation around biological activities, around biological events, around labs, chemical events. It's an important problem because it's an organized campaign. There's political underpinnings. There's a machinery, an infrastructure that's guiding these campaigns. The impact that it has is often in the diplomatic space around non-proliferation norms, with domestic audiences, with international audiences. So its scope for impact is just really powerful. However, on a personal level, I think everyday misinformation is where it's just really frustrating for us doing the work that we do. When your family member comes to you and says something against vaccines that's not rooted in scientific fact. When you hear someone, you're out shopping, say something about like a false cure that definitely is not backed by fact. When someone's spreading misinformation about AI in a professional setting, these everyday instances really add up and create an environment, create that information disorder that I was talking about earlier. So unfortunately, I think both are important for different reasons, which is why we've been exploring different approaches for this everyday misinformation as well as these organized disinformation campaigns that are backed by countries and governments.
Okay. Yes, my co-moderator, Uma, you had a question earlier.
Yes, oui. I have j'ai une question pour le docteur Masuku, et ça concerne un peu la situation de l'épidémie d'Ebola en République démocratique du Congo. Moi, je voulais savoir, au niveau de CDC Afrique, quels sont les types de désinformation les plus souvent véhiculés aujourd'hui concernant la maladie Ebola en République démocratique du Congo? C'est pour le docteur Masuku.
Thank you very much, Moma, for that question. Unfortunately, I'm not the best placed person for that because we have a communications team that deals directly with that. That being said, I think I can just speak to, from my perspective, one of the activities that we are doing in terms of trying to strengthen public trust is we are improving the coordination internally to ensure that what we're putting out in the public is actually accurate information that is based really on the response. But in terms of from the communications perspective, I wouldn't be best placed for that. But I'm happy to find out and just share with the colleagues after our session. Over.
Okay, so would someone else, any of the panel members, want to add on?
Sorry, can I come in, Madam? I asked the two questions. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I think really what I was getting at is the response to the misinformation and disinformation is differently structured, because one is a deliberate effort from the beginning aimed to mislead, and one is an unknowing, conveyance of misinformation. So the way we respond will be affected by the structure of our response. And that is why I was saying that For example, when you talk about GMOs, what Evans asked, most of the people, the first thing that comes to their minds is GMOs are harmful. But really, that might not be the case. The farmer might be thinking, I cannot plant the seeds from a GMO crop, so I have to go and buy it, and the price is not determined by me. So how do we structure our response to those type of questions? Thank you.
Thank you. Please, can anyone help us to answer how we structure our response? Yes. Can I
respond to
Yes.
the aspect of restructuring?
Yes, please.
Thank you very much. That's a very good question. And I want to mention that there's so many initiatives that globally now, even the science communicators and other experts beyond like scientists are undertaking to understand the nature of concern that the public are addressing and how we structure the feedback. And one of the initiatives that is being undertaken is the usage of machine learning techniques that help us understand, the psychographic background of the kind of information we are getting from that, for example, from that area. And another aspect in reference to restructuring is focus on a product-specific initiative. I want to give you an example of Kenya in reference to BT cotton. Before commercialization of BT cotton, there were so many issues that were out there, and some of them were not even related to issues of safety, as you well mentioned. Some of them were related to issues of safety. Some of them were related to issues, how will we get the seeds, like you well mentioned. Some were related to what they were hearing in the media, that if we plant these seeds, this is what will happen to our animals when they feed on these seeds. But now the narrative has changed, because the approach was now to involve even
La connexion est perdue, je pense. S'il y a une autre question, on peut peut-être passer le temps qu'il revienne. Ah, il est là.
Hello, sorry, I think I got interrupted somewhere. Hello, can you hear me? Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Yes, let me just finalize by saying it was more of, in a nutshell, it was more of, stakeholders, mapping and identification, and knowing who has this responsibility. Introducing a new technology does not focus alone on the technology, but it's then focus on the responsibility, who takes what and who says what. So when you are able to coordinate all these people and empower the lowest person in your cadre, you do this technology mapping and all those things, you are able to provide structured information that might not even, because I remember even me, when I speak to my farm, I don't speak like this. I have to then translate the scientific component into a professional, then into a public accepted language that will help them understand. So these are some of the things so it is a process that really at the end of the day help us structure right information to a right entity. Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you. Let me just Andrea has an answer to help us. He says that in today's digital era, information spreads much faster than before, often reaching people instantly through social media and other online platforms, which some of our one or two of our presenters touched on. Unfortunately, the speed of information sharing can also contribute to the rapid spread of misinformation and disinformation. For example, there have been instances where false reports about the death of a famous person or even a national leader have been circulated widely. Although these reports are later proven to be untrue, many people may have already accepted them as factual information. As a result, the false information becomes widespread, creating confusion and generating rumors about the targeted individual. So it's quite a lengthy one, but I think where I have read up to, it's fine for us. Thank you very much, Andrel, for your contribution. Please, Mouma.
Oui, j'ai une question et là, je me fais un peu le porte-parole de beaucoup de journalistes quand même, à travers surtout l'Afrique. C'est par rapport aux divergences scientifiques qui peuvent survenir sur une question donnée. Quelles doivent être les postures des journalistes dans cette situation-là? Je pose la question parce que durant le Covid, il y a eu beaucoup de discours qui ont circulé sur le port de masque ou pas, le virus ou pas, le vaccin ou pas. Dans ces situations-là, on constate que le journaliste, qui n'est pas forcément un scientifique, est totalement désarmé par rapport à des débats qui le dépassent. Alors, la question s'adresse à tous les panélistes, quoi.
Okay. Who will go first for us?
I can start by sharing an interesting experience I had. I was attending a panel about exactly this topic. How can journalists address the rising threat of health misinformation and disinformation, especially now that the media landscape has changed so much? And my summary of what we took away from that panel was that we have a lot to learn from science writers and their ability to translate very complicated scientific topics into very simple, sticky messages that anybody could understand. And it's a labor of love in health literacy, science literacy, and media literacy. So I think that's a skill set a lot of journalists could strengthen, is translating complex scientific concepts, trying to demystify scientific nuance and communicate it to people in a very simple, sticky, and accessible manner. So an example like the one I mentioned earlier, in the United States, there was so much confusion around the different COVID vaccines. Why is there a new one? Well, I heard my neighbor's son's babysitter's dog died of whatever. Like, there were all these rumors, there was all this misinformation, disinformation. And it was really important for journalists to demystify the process of how vaccines are made. How do we test? How do we look out for their safety? How do we test their efficacy? How do we make sure that when they have adverse effects, how do we make sure that we document something like that? So there were some incredible articles going around of people just breaking this process down in detail, but in a simple way, in a way that the average person could glean in a quick 5-minute read. So it's asking the impossible to communicate about something very complicated in an easy, simple way. But it's important work that I think journalists are very well suited to do, or well positioned to do.
Yes. Thank you very much. Thank you. So that's it. We have work to do. Media, we have a lot of work to do. Not taking dissemination of information for granted, and we think we are done. No, there are a lot of things we have to do. Thank you. Please, any other? Well, I guess it's time for us to go back.
Il y a une dernière question, je crois.
Okay.
Il y a une dernière question.
Just to respond to Momar in French.
Please, someone,
French-speaking people.
Jean, you want to talk?
Yes. Let me
Please,
respond
go
to
ahead.
Momar in French for
Sure.
our French-speaking people. Yeah. Donc, sa question, c'était de savoir, il y a des moments où, au niveau des décisions scientifiques, certaines décisions scientifiques, les scientifiques même ne s'accordent pas. Donc,
yes, Jean, we have an interpreter already, so it has been
okay.
interpreted, and
No, I want to just to
Mama
add my
understands that.
response. To add
Please,
my response. Okay.
Oui, allez-y.
Okay, all right.
Voilà.
Please,
Donc,
please go on
effectivement,
and finish.
on l'a vu au
please.
niveau du Covid et en Afrique ici aussi. Il y a eu des problèmes pas mal par rapport à ça. Il y a des pays même où les vaccins pour les recevoir, c'était des problèmes. Et effectivement, il y a un malaise au niveau des journalistes par rapport à ça. Et là, en de telles circonstances, effectivement, les journalistes aussi doivent faire des efforts pour ne pas suivre seulement la tendance souvent de ce qui est prôné en général, mais aussi faire aussi ses propres recherches, approcher les scientifiques, approcher les institutions habilitées à vraiment donner des réponses fiables par rapport à certaines questions. Parce que tout n'est pas toujours blanc ou noir par rapport à certaines situations, mais il y a des institutions habilitées à donc donner la ligne à suivre. C'est ce que je voulais ajouter. Merci.
Thank you for that clarification. Thank you very much.
Il y a une dernière question. Allô, Ama?
Yes.
Ama, il y a une dernière question.
And it goes to Dr. Kibira. Are you reading it?
Yeah. Donc, il y a Anthony Makoha qui demande, il dit que les mentions IA et les avertissements du type l'IA peut se tromper contribuent-ils réellement à améliorer la culture numérique en matière d'intelligence artificielle ou bien sont-ils en train de devenir de nouvelles conditions générales que les utilisateurs ignorent tout simplement? Voilà, c'est un peu ça la question. En gros, est-ce que, oui, ok. Donc, il y a Anthony Makoka qui demande, qui pose une question relative aux mentions IA et aux avertissements de type l'IA peut se tromper qu'on a toujours en bas de requête. Il dit, est-ce qu'il contribue réellement à améliorer la culture numérique en matière d'intelligence artificielle ou bien sont-ils en train de devenir de nouvelles conditions générales que les utilisateurs ignorent tout simplement? Que nous révèlent les données disponibles quant à savoir si ces avertissements modifient réellement la manière dont les gens évaluent et partagent l'information. C'est un peu ça sa question, quoi. Quelle est l'utilité de la mention l'IA peut se tromper qu'on a toujours en bas d'une requête IA? Voilà.
Yes, I suppose, Joseph?
Yes, thank you very much.
Yes, thank you too.
Allow me to briefly respond to that question, and I also want to appreciate the team for those many questions. I think next time maybe we should have more time for AI because really there's a lot of interest on AI. Yes, I want to mention that when I started, I mentioned that AI is a tool, and inherently it is not the problem. The problem is on us that are using the AI, and AI has dual capability. What I mean by dual capability, it can be used to accelerate, simplify, even the kind of information that we are spreading. It even recently, when I was in a global biotechnology symposium, 90% of the presentations were done there. You could see they were applying AI to really simplify information, to make information easy to communicate to the target audience. At the same time, AI can be used to exaggerate. It can be used to impersonate, like somebody mentioned here. So it can be used either negatively or positively. The essence is when you are doing digital literacy, AI should be one of the components that you're focusing on. And as scientists and as researchers or as journalists in different domains, there is a need to have safeguards that govern these large language models. The biggest disadvantages or challenges that we have with large language models as African, I mentioned one is issues to do with algorithmic bias. They are not developed to understand our data, our local data, or the way we express ourselves or as a society or as individual, yeah, in African context. That is a challenge with AI. Another one is hallucinations, exaggerations. So we must have a framework or a law or a governing structures that will help us as a country or as a region coordinate and safeguard the use of AI. Yeah, thank you very much. I want to stop there.
Thank you very, very much, Joseph and Jean. And our keynote speaker has to go for another meeting, so she has stepped off. Please, is there any other question? Somebody's hand was up. Or we are okay to go? Mama, would you want to share your last? Rosalia, are you coming or you can wrap up now?
All right. Okay, I'll come in. There being no further comments from the moderators, I'd like to just say a word of thank you to participants for such an engaging session. Very, very key questions that were asked. Thank you for making this webinar very interactive. And we hope that you have learned quite a lot in this webinar. And from the feedback that we are receiving, it means that we will have to do to structure a lot more such engagements, especially the topic of AI. So we will be looking at some of the recommendations from this webinar and structure accordingly so that we keep on sharing the information. Big thank you to our moderators, Miriama and Momar, for steering this conversation so well, and to our panelists, Dr. Jean Kebere from the AUDA NEPED, and sorry, from the Africa Union AUDA NEPED. And then we are grateful also to Dr. Joseph Odongo, who is a molecular biologist and currently focusing quite a bit on border security. Then we also are very grateful to Dr. Zibusiso Masuku, Senior Biosafety and Biosecurity Officer from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention in Africa, that's Africa CDC, and Dr. Aishwarya Nagar from the Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security. And she's also a research associate at the Bloomberg School of Public Health. So we want to say thank you very much for sharing your knowledge on this very, very important topic of communicating misinformation and disinformation, or communicating emerging technologies with confidence. And the topic today was trust by design. So we believe that you have, or we hope that you have got quite a lot of information on communicating emerging technologies with confidence. Our webinar series, Truth Under the Microscope, continues. The next webinar will be webinar number 3, and it will be held on Thursday, next Thursday, which is 20th of August. And the topic will be checking claims and clarifying science for various audiences. You don't want to miss that. Kindly, we'll be requesting that you also share the registration with your networks and with your workmates, with your colleagues, so that we all learn together. We continue with the conversation, ABG, hashtag AGBC webinars. and Science Against Misinformation. I said at the beginning that we have an upcoming Congress that will be in March 2027. Go to our website to see how you can participate in it. Abstracts are currently being accepted. Then we also ask that you subscribe to our newsletter, and the links will be shared in here. And you will also be requested to fill in the post-webinar evaluation. Remember, we said that at the end of the webinars, we will be giving certificates. And that's the only way we will know that you attended the webinar. Of course, we can see you and thank you very much. But kindly fill in and leave your comments with us so that it helps us to structure the next set of webinars. So the link is already in the chat to answer to the post-webinar evaluation. Fill that in. We will also be sharing that with you on email so that you leave your comments with us to help us to structure future engagements. Thank you very much to all that's helped to prepare this webinar series. We are grateful to the chairperson and the founder of the Africa Genetic Biocontrol Consortium, Dr. Willie Tonui, and all the staff at the Africa Genetic Biocontrol Consortium Secretariat here in Nairobi. My name is Rosalia Ungo. I'm the Chief Executive Officer, and we want to wish you a great day, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening from wherever you're tuned in.
Good afternoon, good evening. Thank you very much. And thank all participants for your patience. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Merci.